Welcome back. This is now the front brake caliper rebuild. So I've just done the master cylinder, and while I was at it I wanted to do the brake calipers themselves. They are quite grotty. There is some brake fluid in here, but there's been all sorts of paint peel. Some of it's from the brake fluid I've spilt, some of it's just where it's been tarnished for some time. So I'll try and clean that up as I go. But what I have done before I took it off the bike is I cracked the two bolts over here that split, allowing to separate the two halves of the caliper. Now I've got the full kit from Motorworks. I actually got some pistons. The rest of the kit, why have I got two sets of pistons on one side? I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Two sets of pistons. The bolt kit, and I've also got the pins as well as a set of pads on each side, as well as a new bleeder screw and a little dust shield cap. So in theory I've got everything I need. What I don't have is the experience and knowledge of what I'm doing. I've obviously read the manual. It doesn't look too complicated. I'm concerned getting the pistons out is going to be an absolute nightmare. So I have these piston removal pliers, which again are something I have never used. Should make the job easier. Judging by how much the rest of the bike has been an absolute nightmare, I'm expecting this to suck. But I'm going to do it one at a time. We'll do the first one. I'll record that process and you can point out when I'm doing something stupid or if I've done something bad. And then I'll do the other one offline. But yeah, this is the caliper rebuild, so I'll bring you in close, see what I'm doing, and we'll get started. Right, I think the first thing to do is just appreciate the bolts. The fact that I cover in paint, put them off to one side. And I'll tell you what, let's take out the bleeder, which is an 11mm, and I should have got that. Because although I've loosened everything off the bike, I will need to tighten it back up. So let's get my 11mm ready. And this is probably going to piss fluid out. Oh, no, maybe not. What I might do is get a tray to put all my leftover parts in to keep myself organised. Okay. Oh god, everything's freaking disgusting on this. Right, so that's off. This plastic cover should just lever off. There we go. Yeah, someone else has spilled brake fluid on here before me, as well as me. So, dodgy spray job. I think I need some pliers to get these pins out. Now, hopefully I can just push these out, or pull rather, and I say hopefully because they are very stiff, which is why I bought new ones. I did try and give them a clean before I put these back together, but even when they've been cleaned like this, they're still very stiff. It's the spring clip. Actually, that one came out relatively easily, so it's not too rusted. Pads have dropped out, middle pin. These pads actually have a lot of meat on them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were pretty much new. But again, I've got new pads, so I'll sort that out in a second. All of this has been undone on the bike. If you don't undo it on the bike, it's going to be a nightmare to get off otherwise. Especially for someone like myself who hasn't got an actual workspace. And there's only so much goodwill I can get from using the kitchen. before I get into really big trouble, because it makes a lot of mess. Right, that's the caliper split. Now, one of the things to be aware of, apparently there are two different types of calipers, and you can tell the difference by how many of these O-rings you need. Now, the kit comes with one O-ring, which is good because it actually matches my setup. So that's nice. Now what I'd like to do is hopefully pull out these pistons. Now for that, I've got this doohickey here. Now the goal with this is to wind here, and that allows it to grip the side of the pistons with force, and I should be able to, yeah, I can rotate nicely, but can I lever it out? Oh, I think it is actually coming. Let's re-get some grip. There is some movement coming out there. So let's try that again. Oh, that popped right. Okay. My hands are disgusting. But that first piston is out. That's awesome. I was not expecting that to work as well. Give that a good inspection in a minute. There is... Oh crikey, how on earth is all of that? Oh, it just pops. So that popped out that way up. So let me just replicate. Is that the only seal there is? Just that one seal? Let's have a look on the other side. In case you're wondering, I was not expecting that piston to come out that easily. Which makes me think they're all going to be a nightmare. That one came out easily as well. Although these two pistons came out quite easily, the second caliper, those pistons were wedged firmly in place, and it actually took my wife pointing out the best approach to do this if you don't have a workspace to do it, which is to stand on the two little wings of the caliper that you can see there, where the bolts go through and it mounts to the bike frame. Get the tool wedged around in the piston and then wiggle it and pull with your entire body as you're coming up while pushing down on your feet to keep the piston in place. It was a nightmare, but it is doable with just the basic hand tools you've got there in front of you. Well, that's going better than I expected. Yeah. Let's see what goes there. Right, let's give this all a clean. But this, is there a seal? I think there's a rubber seal just on the inside there. That looks like it's going to be fun to fit. There we go. Figured there would be a second seal. So there's another little ring that sits just inside there. I'm going to need to give these a good dry up and clean in a second. Come on. Thinking maybe I should have got my picks out of the shed. Oh, no. There we go. It's a bit of a nightmare to get off. I think it's universally shaped. Doesn't appear to be a particular way round for it. So that's good. And these dust seals go down top ways, like so. Now these pistons, get a cloth. They don't look terrible. There's some marking on this one. Yeah, there's some marking on that I'm not happy with. So I'm glad I got some new ones. This one doesn't appear to be as marked. There's a lot of rusting around the lip here. So I think they would have sealed fine. A little bit of issues you can kind of just about feel on this one, but there is the worst of it. You can really feel that piston. So glad I've got a fresh set of those. What I'll do is give everything here a clean, and I'll come back when we start re-putting things back together. Right, I am back from cleaning, and these have actually come out really well. I've had a look around. There doesn't appear to be any damage in the seal area. The paint, obviously, is just terrible, but I'm not too worried about the paint right now, because for me, what I'll do is I will sort out the paint at a later date. My priority is to get the bike up and running and through an MOT. So we've seen the old pistons are quite sealed. With the new piston kit, you actually get a set of instructions from Brembo that tell you everything you need to do. So I've glanced at those and probably forgotten half the steps. But we have our brand new pistons, and they look stunning. Quite an actual colour change. So it's interesting to see the difference there. But we've got that ready to go. What we also have is the seal kit, which contains the top dust seal, 2 of those, 2 caliper fixing bolts, which is fantastic because these ones are short for some reason. Yeah, but there are caliper fixing bolts, so that's good. And also the little rubber O-ring I mentioned as one of. So there is another caliper that has 2 of these O-rings that I'm vaguely aware of. Lucky enough, mine's a simple. It also has in the kit some grease for the assembly of these seals that go on the inner edge. So I think there's nothing else left to do but to give it a go. how liberal to be with this grease. There's quite a bit of it, so I'm going to be quite liberal. It's not so much greasy, it's kind of tacky. And so this has to sit on that inner ring. Don't know how on earth it's going to do that. It's freaking huge. You know what? That went in a lot easier than I expected it to. So what I did is hopefully goes in, I find the first ring and then I just push it around the outside until it's most of the way there, and then I just push the last bit in. And bang, that goes in. Well, that was simple. Right, let me just, then we have to get this. This goes on top, if I understand, this ring here. And then all of that gets pushed and recessed into there. So, to break up a bit more of the grease in my hands, because appear to be working really well. Then that seals around there. Well, that is probably a lot easier than I made it look, but that went swimmingly. I'll do the same, see if that was a stroke of genius or just me actually reading the instructions. So again, I just pop this on this ring here first. So it's on the outer edge, then I get a bit more of the grease. Yeah. And I'm quite liberal with it around the edge here, because I also wanted to come up into this bottom ring. So I'm just get it in place, take it flat on my hand and I push down. Then as I get to the edge, I push in with one side and I just feed my finger around the outside until that ring seats in place, and then I just push it down a bit more so it's nice and flush, and that was that. Those are now fully home, and all I have to do to rejoin these is I'll put a bit of lube on this. Lucky enough I've got very lubey fingers now. That sits there. Should just be a case now of joining the two calipers together, tightening everything home. Alright, so that's the two calipers joined. What I'll do is when that's back on the bike, I will properly secure those to the right torque, which I'm sure is in my manual somewhere. If not, it's going to be a good and tight setting. Right, then the next thing we need is obviously the bleed nipple. Let's get that threaded. And I'm not sure which side it's on. That was a thing to check. Is it on the inside or on the outside? Because if it's hung on a wheel like this way round, that would be on the inside where the brake line would go to. So it should be on the outside because that's the furthest away. If I'm wrong, again, correct me. But I'm pretty sure this one clamps on the outside. And you want the brake bleed nipple to be far enough away. So again, I'll just give that a nip. There we go. Just nip that up. So that's in place. That's good. Finally, I need to insert the actual brakes, brake pads, which we have here. I am going to wash my hands before I touch these, just in case there's a bit of grease left on them, so I'll be back in a second. Right, so we have the bridging pin, two main pins. They look much better than what came out of there. And I just got brake pads off of eBay for this particular model. I didn't go out of my way and get sintered HH or anything special like that because I'm not going to be riding this bike hard, and the first part of this job for me was to build the bike and get it running. And then after that I will see what I'm going to end up doing, whether I'm going to modify things or whether I want harsher brakes, better acceleration, I don't know. And while I don't know, I don't want to spend a fortune on things I'm not going to use. Right. So, this should be quite simple, he says. These slot through, like so. And then from the outside we get first pin, goes all the way through. And I'll push that home in a second. You know what, I said it's quite simple, and I guarantee I've screwed it up already. Because this not sitting home. Why is that not getting home? So it's supposed to ride in between here, like this one. Rides in beautifully. This one can't get at all. What I'm going to do for now is I'm going to reuse this. Could try and polish off some of the edge of this one, but I'll reuse this one because it's in place. It just makes my life a bit easier. So before I do that, so you hook that into place, and this one here hooks underneath, so that when I pass through here, it should be something I can push down and get into place. Whew, that was a lot harder. Okay. So now you can see that pins the cross piece there, spring, I think it's the spring clip. The spring clip is resting in the groove for it on the pins. The pads should be able to now slide on these pins in both directions. This is the only part that I'm concerned about, so what I'll probably do at some point is take this one, give it a little bit of rub in sandpaper, and make that sorted. This is a rebuilt brake caliper. My first one I've ever done. That's the entire brake caliper built. It's my first time building a brake caliper up and replacing everything. The only thing I've not really done is obviously repainted everything, but that's a job for later down the line once I decide what I'm going to be doing with the bike long term. I'd say if you're going to try this at home, there's a few things that you critically need. Some way of getting the piston out. I've got these piston pliers off of eBay. I think they were like £9. Without them, I've no idea how I would have struggled to get those pistons out because they were a little bit hard to do, and the motion there of twist and pulling at the same time is a little bit awkward. The other thing is to buy the entire kit. I think if you're doing the rebuild, why not do the entire thing? It's worth it. It's not that difficult, and I think the hardest things I've got there are actually putting the pads back in more than anything else. The seals will go through. Because I bought the right kit, I've got all the fluids I need. Everything was perfect, with the exception of this one little cross piece there, which at a low point I might actually just sand down the end with a bit of a grinder and see if I can get that in place, just because it's cleaner. But it looks like everything's going to slide, and this should be able to go straight back onto the bike, connect up all the lines, and hopefully I can just bleed it all out. Quite pleased for that, my first attempt. What I'll do now is I'll do the second one off camera because it's exactly the same process. In fact, I think the only difference in these calipers are the mounting points here. So thanks very much. Should have another one coming out, say with everything going back on the bike, and then hopefully that's the bike running most of the way there, and this will be stopping. So then it's just checking all the gears and getting through an MOT hopefully. So thanks very much, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.